Welcome to the Neuroperformance Podcast with your host, Andy Murphy. Join us as we delve into the advanced high-performance tactics he uses with his elite clientele across the globe. Let's unlock a whole new world of business potential together.
This becomes an absolute game changer, and I'll show you why a little bit later on in this, but I want you to start looking through other people's eyes about any scenario that you're going through to gain a different perspective. Because truthfully, what Napoleon Hill talked about was the mastermind alliance. That's two or more people dedicated to the common goal, the common good, and the spirit of harmony, is the way I was taught it 18 years ago now. And what that means is it leads on to the next thing that I'm about to bring up, which is mirror neurons.
What's going on, Neuroperformers, and welcome to episode 433. Hope you're amazing as always, and life is treating you. Hope it's treating you pretty damn good. So here we are, episode 433. It's an interesting one. If you're following the episodes, you'll see there's a little theme developing, right? We've got awesome interviews. We've got previous episodes that I absolutely love, like this one, right? And we've also got trainings which I'm taking live from people who have paid thousands of dollars to be in one of my groups, and also the 8-Figure Thinker University or Training Academy, right? Those things aren't available to the public right now, by the way. So you're getting little cheat sheets of how to perform at a world class level, you know? And if you listen to the previous episodes, you'll see that I'm on a bit of a mission with the coaching industry. And really, I see as so many coaches who are very, very talented get stuck, and they really want to charge double, triple, quadruple what they're charging. They've tried the agencies and the lead gen sources, and they kind of understand what to do there. But as they're going through these courses, they're finding that they're getting a little stuck, right? And everybody in the coaching game wants 8-figure clients, right? 8-figure clients. So it involves you being the ultimate version of you. It also involves you upskilling to a very high level, because the people like my clients, they demand results really, really quick, right? And they're not paying for what everyone else can give them. They're paying for a uniqueness, which is you, but they're paying for a high level skill set. So my mission with the podcasts is to start introducing you to some of these skill sets, right? This way of thinking, feeling, and acting that's going to put you around 8-figure clients, that's going to then pay you 6 figures a client. That's the idea, right? So if that sounds good, then this is the episode for you. If you're an entrepreneur in general and you're just here to tune that brain up, hey, this is a good episode for you too, for sure. Just so you know, the 8-Figure Thinker Coaching Academy and the group, or I'm still playing with the name, that's going to be live in probably a month. So we'll start, I'd say the end of October. I think we'll be able to go live, and you can apply to be a part of, because it's probably only going to be 100 people max. Done. It's it. Let's go and kick ass together. Sound good? Awesome. So go head over to andymurphy.online, andymurphy.online, one more, andymurphy.online. Sign up for the Neuro newsletter, and you'll be the first to hear all about it. And speaking of all about it and awesome things, let's jump into this episode. One of the things most people know me for is neuro-linguistic programming, which I've been a world-class expert for 22 years now, all over the world, spoke all over the world. But obviously, I do a heck of a lot more than NLP, right? But it is a solid foundation of mine, right? I've built the neuroscience, the behavioral psychology, all of the other modalities that I do, including the spirituality stuff. But really, it's all about you growing your business to a whole new level. And it starts with you. It always starts with you. Everything starts inside, right? It always does. An idea, where does that come from? Well, we can get metaphysical, or we can talk about where do actual memories or ideas come from, and different thing, right? But what I want to show you today is perspective. Perspective is life. Perspective is everything, right? You could both be sitting in the most amazing sunset. You could be stressed or happy. I could be stressed or happy. But either one, the sad person isn't enjoying that sunset the same way as the happy person, right? So life is about perspective. And one of the concepts that I teach heavily for rapid change, this could be with world-class athletes, people going through IPOs, online coaches, online entrepreneurs, consultants, to anything. What we want to do is change neurological behavior very fast, like very fast. I've actually got a course coming up which you might like. It's like five parts, and I actually cover this in a lot more detail. A lot more detail than I actually covered today. But we're going to go into how the brain responds. We're going to go into the modeling or the adaptation of the brain to adapt to whatever it is around the most. Now, it can do this genetically. It can also do this neurologically. So that's what today's episode is about. How can you change really fast, and how can you step up, and how can you help your clients, and how can you help the people around you hit that next level? Sound good? Awesome. So enjoy this episode. Make sure you head over to andymurphy.online, sign up for newsletter, or just have a chat with me. Having a chat with me might change your life. Speaking of changing life, let's jump in. I'll see you at the end of the show, or I will see you next episode. Enjoy.
Let's jump into modeling, okay? Modeling is such a powerful thing, and you should be utilized in every area of your life. And it's one of the concepts in Think and Grow Rich, obviously the classic book Napoleon Hill. He talks about his imaginary counsel. Well, this is actually modeling. And we're going to go into that a little bit deeper. But what is modeling? Okay, so NLP modeling involves transferring what an expert thinks they know and what they unconsciously know. Now, we all know this by now, the conscious and unconscious mind. We're becoming consciously aware of what's unconsciously or automatically playing, right? The thoughts, the way we feel, the way we act, the way we react, the way we wake up in the morning, all of these things, that's all unconscious, right? So what here is what we want to do is we use NLP modeling for everything, right? We use it for everything. So, for example, you could model how someone keeps their desk clean, right? You could do anything. And we use this for modeling excellence. So this could be modeling or learning the strategy or how someone thinks, feels, and acts to create $1 million business, to become a world champion athlete, to become a philosopher, right? Or a mom, right? It doesn't matter. The same principles can be applied to everything. It's looking at the world through like a microscope. That's how we want to look, right? So the NLP techniques, skills, and presuppositions enable us to real model on a deeper level. So what are we looking for? We're going to go run through this. And I want you to start thinking about people in your life that you admire, that you want to become more like. And that doesn't mean you've got to become like them in completeness. It's just their superpowers is what we want to start looking at more and more. And we're going to go into that a little bit later. But what I want to just show you is these simple things that we now can start observing in ourselves, but for this occasion, for these high performers. So NLP strategies, okay, what does that mean? That means what movie is playing in their head, right? What decisions are they making right there and then? Then we can also look at their physiology, right? We're looking at their body posture, even the tonality of their voice if we want to get into it, right? Then we look at something called meta programs. These are very small, deep patterns that everything is built off. So, for example, this is beliefs and values, right? So, how to explain this goes into sales when we go into subliminal sales on the later weeks and instant rapport building and hypnotic communication and all of this cool stuff that we're going to get to. But on a meta program, all that we want to know is if you were sitting next to someone in a bar and you were both watching a sport and the person was going, oh, knew everything about the sport, and you were sitting next to them and you knew everything about the sport, right? You have built a deep values connection on that sport, right? You don't give a damn what job he does, how much money he's got, you don't care because you know that you have this deep connection on that values level. And that is what we want to look at in modeling, but we're going to cover that in the later weeks when we build deeper rapport and magnetize rooms, okay? So it goes on, but we're going to get into it, right? So traditional learning, this is the difference between modeling and traditional learning when we're learning a new skill or replicating a behavior, okay? So traditional learning adds things in pieces, okay? So the drawback with this is that we don't know which bits are essential, right? And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. But what we're trying to do is, first of all, take like a screenshot of that person or that project or how they run, the mechanics of the run. It could be sharpshooters. It could be someone being on stage. All of these things are what we can model or look at one screenshot. What traditional learning does is it teaches in lots of bits. But the challenge is, if we're learning lots of bits, we don't know which ones are going to be that we really take to or applicable to get the result that we want in the moment, okay? Might sound a bit like, what the heck are you talking about? But it'll become very clear in a moment, right? So what we do is systematically taking out elements of the modeling. So let me explain what this means. How we model someone's behavior or someone we're looking up to or a skill is by asking questions, okay? So we're going to get more into what the questions are, but this is a way for us to delve into someone's unconscious patterns that they might not even understand that they're even doing, right? Because not like we look at sports. How someone throws a football, American football, or they kick a football, English football, they probably don't even know how they do that. They've just done it for so long, it becomes an automatic behavior. Well, this is the same thing in your life, with your business, with your confidence, with your growth. You probably don't even know where it's quite affecting you. So what we do in modeling, again, the focus is on what the person does, their behavior and physiology, how they do it, their internal thinking and strategies, and the big one, which is their why or their driver. And this is their supporting beliefs and assumptions. So what we're focusing on is what the person does, how they do it, and why they do it. So think about this for yourself, right? So what are you doing that is working, is not working? How are you doing this that's working or not working? And why are you doing this? So when we've spoke about sabotage patterns in the past, just take this screenshot for a moment. So what are you doing? Well, I keep eating chocolate every single night. I can't stop. So how are you doing that, right? Well, I it gets to 8 o'clock at night. I look at the clock and go, ooh, it's 8 o'clock at night. Ooh, I could really do a treat. It's been a stressful day. Your brain then says, let's eat chocolate, right? That's how you do it. So why you do it? Well, why do you eat chocolate at night? Well, could be many different drivers. Could be because, one, you like chocolate. Second is because you're trying to escape with some chemicals from the next day, right? So there's all these different, or you could just have a food addiction, right? There's all these different things. But when we can start to really look at modeling in ourselves and what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing these things, then we can start to become what? Consciously aware of what's automatic planning, okay? So the thing is about this, right? Until you have all the relevant pieces of that skill necessary, it's hard to replicate or teach it effectively, okay? So what we try and do, like for example, this is a great example, the second paragraph, okay? So say I was learning how to model someone who's earning $5 million a year. Not that that means anything, but if that's what you wanted, let's model someone that's earning $5 million a year, okay? So this example here, if we tried to make a cake and start to take all these ingredients, right? All the ingredients of someone earning millions, all the ingredients of making a cake, we laid them all out on a table, okay? And we didn't know what order to put them in, how to put them in, what we're even doing, or why we're even making the cake. Then the challenge becomes just, it could become anything. It becomes a mess. And so this with passion. Okay, well, that's why, and that's how he's doing it. But that's not the what. That's not the why, right? Why he could be doing it could be what we want or what we don't want. Why he could be doing it was because he wants to feed his kids, or it could be because he wants to buy lots of guns and go and make a war, right? We don't know why he's doing it. So what I want you to start paying attention to is how powerful this process is for ourselves and to replicate other people. To put this into a different scenario, I remember back in sales when I first started this game 18 years ago in Sydney in Australia, and I'd never done sales before, didn't have a clue. And I got taught very high-end technical neuro-linguistic programming sales. I didn't know it was that, but that's what I was taught. And I didn't really know how to sell. Why? Because I'd never been around salespeople. And it wasn't after till 4 months went by that I was doing okay. I was doing average. But then I went and said, I don't know why I did this, but I did. I said, I want to go on tour or shadow the top performer in the company. So I did. And I watched them. I went around and they had their clients and they took us around and we went up to the hotels and we did all these things because we were selling investment real estate. So I watched her. I watched how she spoke to the clients, how much she touched them, the distancing, the type of questioning, the tonality, the reaction and what she would say and how she would close. And plus much more. And I was watching and watching and watching. And I said to myself, I'm better than her. Literally, I'm better than her. I went back and become the top performer in the country, same month. So why? Because did I take any superpowers? No, I literally just went, I do that. I see how you've done that. So I modeled her. So if we can understand how to do that in everyone we aspire to be like, man, the world's powerful. And we'll show you what Napoleon Hill used to do every day to get advice. And I'll show you that in a second. But what I want you to do now is to pick a scenario. Okay, this could be a scenario in your business. This could be a scenario in your life. This could be a block. This could be you need expansion on. Doesn't matter, right? If you're trying to build a business online right now, then okay, well, guess what? That's cool. But what we've got to do is let's look a little bit deeper to why you're resisting or why you can't get that creativity to get the solution. Okay, pick a scenario. So hopefully everybody's picked one. If not, press pause if you're not watching this live. Okay, so here's some of the questions. This is how we start to look at modeling, okay? So what are the behavioral patterns of the successful person? Or what are the behavioral patterns of the person I aspire to be like, right? Don't worry about this. This is gonna make sense in a second. I just want you to write these questions down or remember them, okay? So how does she achieve her results or his results or their results? So what did she do that is different from another person, basically? What is the difference that makes the difference? When you have all the pieces, then you can refine that and put that into a little model. Now that might seem complicated, but this is about to become very easy. So you got your scenario. Cool. Okay, choose that scenario. So I want you to just think about right now. You can close your eyes and do this. You can keep them open. It makes no difference. But I just want you to think about now Einstein. I want you to think about what you've seen about him, what you've listened about him, what you've read about him, what your assumptions are about how he sees the world. What would happen if we just stepped in and looked through his eyes for a moment? How would he stand? What's his posture? How would he breathe? How fast does his brain work? So what would his beliefs be about himself and his skill? What about his confidence about his ability from 0 to 100? How fast does he take action if he's inspired? What's his general focus when solving an issue? What does he say to himself? Now, it might seem like, well, I don't really know. But I bet you could give me an answer for all of those things, right? So what I want you to do is think of your scenario that you want an answer in, expansion, or you're getting a block at. And I just want you to look through Einstein's eyes for a moment, right? And think how we would solve this problem. Now, what we know about Einstein, he's a massive picture thinker, right? And he thinks in dimensions, and he thinks in science. So how would you expand this scenario using Einstein's thinking of expansion and his confidence and his belief? How would you expand this scenario so you could see a different way? Just pause there for a moment. Maybe you get answers, maybe you don't with Einstein. But what advice would Einstein give you about your situation? Think about that. If anything comes through, you can press pause on this. If anything comes through, just think about that. You might get some ahas now. You might get a different way of seeing the world now. Okay, beautiful. What about James Bond? Do exactly the same thing with James Bond. So, for example, you might be scared of getting on camera. You might be scared of actually getting your product brand message out to the world, right? So let's have a look at James Bond. Now, James Bond puts himself in the craziest situations, right? Wild situations, life or death situations. He's charismatic, right? He can build rapport and influence anybody on the planet. So what advice would James Bond give you about your situation? Right? What would he tell you about your situation? That if you took his advice would make your scenario really, really small. So you see the difference already. Einstein's about full expansion, playing in dimensions, seeing what possibility is. That would help you with your scenario to get a different, bigger perspective. James Bond's belief is that he will then just go and smash it, right? Go and connect with whoever he wants. Learn how the hacks, how to get around the system. What technology can he bring in, right? This is the confidence that comes from James Bond. Now, what advice would he give you about your situation? Do you see how this starts to work? What about Elon Musk? Right? What's his confidence about himself and his ability? What is his action on inspiration? Right? How does he solve an issue? How does he communicate with himself or about life? So look at your scenario right now. If it's expansion, growth, a different income stream, putting yourself out there, what is going on, right? Well, what would Elon Musk tell you about your situation? Right. Well, Elon Musk, from my side, is going to look, he's going to connect to that why, right? Because everything that he does isn't about him. It's not for him. It's not for accumulation. It is for the big picture of the planet, humanity as a species, right? So that's his why. So do you have a big enough mission or why or purpose to what you're doing? And if you did, like Elon Musk, how would this scenario just dissolve? Right? How would that resistance that you've been doing just go? If we adopted James Bond's tenacity, tech, intelligence, hacking, communication skills, the way he goes out and put himself in risky scenarios, how would that affect your scenario? What about the massive big picture thinking, metaphysical thinking, right? How would that affect your scenario? What advice would you get? Do you see how this might seem silly, but do you see how powerful this is? And what Napoleon Hill, if you ever listen to his, he's got a couple of different books, but if you ever listen to him, I'm going back over 100 years, man. And we're not talking about neuroscience then, but guess what? This has been spoken about for thousands of years, not just Napoleon Hill, right? So what he did is he had a mastermind alliance, he used to call it, right? So he had a group of people that he imagined that were his counsel in his head. And before he made any decision about anything, he would address his counsel in his head. So your counsel right here is what? Einstein, James Bond, and Elon Musk. His are a little different, right? But the truth is behind it, we can do the same thing. So if we're feeling stuck, imagine seeing the world through Elon Musk's eye about your situation, right? It's a different feeling. And so when we can start to understand this becomes an absolute game changer. And I'll show you why a little bit later on in this, but I want you to start looking to other people's eyes about any scenario that you're going through to gain a different perspective. Because truthfully, what Napoleon Hill talked about was the mastermind alliance. That's two or more people dedicated to the common goal, the common good, and the spirit of harmony, is the way I was taught it 18 years ago now. And what that means is it leads on to the next thing that I'm about to bring up, which is mirror neurons. But what we want to understand here is this becomes hugely powerful, okay? Because our brain starts to adapt to these behaviors. So moving on to mirror neurons, but hopefully that makes sense for everyone out there, okay? Beautiful. So mirror neurons. These are some amazing tools that you need to understand, you need to apply, and you need to really take responsibility for the power of these tools. Because if you do, this just goes through the roof, but so does everything else. So what the heck's a mirror neuron? So mirror neurons allow us to learn through imitation. They enable us to reflect body language, facial expressions. They play an essential part of our social life. And they are the key for child development as well as relationships. Okay? So mirror neurons were first discovered in monkeys' brains. In human brains, they're the same thing, right? They found the mirror neurons that we have, right? The difference is it's the premotor cortex, okay? And this is the difference between the monkeys and us. But what this means is that we have the same thing because we're not that different. So monkeys, right? So what we understood is that monkeys start replicating each other. We found the mirror neurons in us, okay? So we found that the mirror neuron fires both when an animal acts and when it observes the same action performed by another. So if I was doing this, in your head, you start to do this. The mirror neuron replicates it, okay? So it replicates the behavior as if though the observer were acting as itself. Put that in a less techie thing. Why are these videos on YouTube or like accident videos? Why do people laugh when people fall over, right, and hurt themselves or do something crazy? And why do you go, oh, you do it inside your own body? This is a mirror neuron. That's why they're popular. That's why these videos work, because people like associate into them, but again, they feel the sensation, but they're not living the sensation. So when we go back to understanding mirror neurons now, and we understand this, then guess what? The more we think like these people, the more we watch this stuff, the more we go over and over and over their version of reality, our brain starts to adapt, okay? So it's the same with leadership. If you're leading a tribe, whether it's a physical location, online, whatever it is, what do the tribe want to see? They want to see heart congruence. What does that mean? It means you care. They want to see alignment. Meaning, if you are saying you are a type of person and you do these things, then you best do those things, right? And so you see a lot of old school, like cheese bowl motivational speakers who'd be like me on stage, but then they get off stage and they'd be an alcoholic or they'd be depressed. And so that's the thing. People can't handle that anymore because social media and the world were all so interconnected. So for people to follow you, heart congruence, alignment with your message and who you are. Sales, well, that's by example. So I put this sales because this is from a slightly different topic, but sales by example, and we'll go into that later on. But everything by example, networking by example. If you're talking about high-level people all the time and you don't have a high-level network, then how can you lead a tribe? What does that mean? Oh, I haven't got one. Doesn't matter. Go and expand your network. Go and make these friends. Go and learn from these people. Or become obsessed with learning from these people, even though you can't touch them. What this does for you is it will make you align and it will start to build a tribe behind you, okay? So we can go into that very quickly, but we've already covered this. This is observation of an action automatically triggers a simulation of the action in our brain. Waving, hurting ourselves, okay? Neurons in the premotor cortex fire during goal-directed actions as well as the observation of similar actions. So what that means is that the premotor cortex in the front of our brain is making a decision towards the goal. So because of that lights up a very similar part of the brain. Mirror neurons provide a neural basis for imitation and empathy. So what makes someone a brilliant coach or a mentor is their ability to empathize with these people, to really truly understand what's going through their head. And unless we start to get used to looking through other people's eyes, and we start getting used to understanding that everything is replicated, then again, we can't communicate how we want to. So we're going to go further on, but I couldn't find any studies about this, but this is where I believe mirror neurons came from. And this is where I need to put an article about this, because I've described it this way for many, many years. So mirror neurons came into our brain started to develop mirror neurons, to me, before we have verbal communication. So this is going back to caveman days and tribes, right, where we didn't have the necessary English language or skills to communicate. Later, it was through storytelling, right? But the truth is, before even storytelling, what did they used to do? They used to act these things out. So mirror neurons were brilliant in tribes, and the world is a tribe, right? So we're constantly mirror neuron in everything around us. That's why social media and all of these things are very dangerous if we don't utilize them correctly. And so how would someone learn a new hunting technique or a fire skill, right? They would study or observe exactly what I spoke about when I modeled that top salesperson, right? I looked at how she interacted, how she did this, what were the details, the tonality, how she touched people. It's the same with learning a new fire skill, hunting technique. No difference. So why am I saying all this? Because, well, I brought up the question, who are you around, which we'll go to in a second. But it's like, what are you putting in your brain? Because if we understand, we go back here, that everything is replicating, then this becomes, it's not a game anymore. Do you know what I mean? High performance in becoming a 1% isn't a game. Although we play the game, but it isn't a game. Because what are you watching, right? What are you watching even on Netflix if you want to watch Netflix, right? There's different type of shows. What are you listening to? What are you reading, right? What are you putting in your brain? Because now we know about the power and the effect of these mirror neurons, right? So one of the things that you're going to do as your action steps from today is we're going to make sure that what we're putting in our brain is exactly the way we want it. And this sounds common knowledge. It is now, but they don't talk about this. They just talk about like putting the good stuff in your brain. But the truth is, this has to become obsessive now. Has to become obsessive. It's something I call immersion. And what immersion means is how we replicate something so fast. Martial arts, right? If I wanted to learn a martial art as fast as possible, what would I do? Would I go and hang around with baseball players, watch baseball videos, go and get private lessons from baseball people? No. I would study an OCD on every single aspect of martial arts. That's the same with mental performance and business. There is no difference. We have to become obsessed with immersing our brains basically 24 hours a day, right? So that means putting yourself in the right place in the mornings. Why? Because what we're listening to, what we're watching, who's around us, all of these things. So this becomes so important now. It's just I can't even explain how important it is. Go and try it. So this leads me to this point, right? Who are you around the most? And everyone talks about, it's an old stat, everyone spoke about it. It's maybe I've mentioned it before here, but the network is your net worth. But now you kind of know why, right? You kind of understand that your brain is going to replicate whoever you are around the most. And we'll talk about that in a second, right? Because look at it this way. So well, we understand the history there. We developed from tribes, right? That's my definition. So who are you around the most? And this is my definitions of what I'm going to show you right now. Is I can't, again, it's so critical to your growth. It's so critical to your results. It's mind-blowing when you understand that. That's why I'm like, because this can kill you. This can make you superhuman. Because let's say, right, for example, there's 3 different types of people: drinkers, athletes, and billionaires. And you've never drank a day in your life. And you go and hang around with people who drink. How long is it going to take before you have a drink and start drinking? Not long, right? What about athletes? Never trained a day in your life, go and hang around with athletes. What are you going to start doing? Right. Go and hang around with billionaires. You might not become a billionaire, but you're going to be well on your way. But why? Because what are the conversations that are generally going on with people who drink and party? Well, it's escapism, right? They're usually moaning about something, or it's not a 1% performer thing. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go out and party. Do what you want. That's cool. But what I'm talking about is drinking in general, to look at that culture, right? People are escaping. Athletes, what are their conversations? What's their focus, right? Fitness, health, abs, right? Getting on Instagram and using one of those wraps they put around them so they can look ripped for half an hour, right? That's athletes, right? Billionaires, what are their conversations? Their conversation is about absolute personal growth, opportunities, perspective, philosophy, growth, right? So whoever you're around the most, your brain starts to mirror or replicate very, very quickly, like rapidly quickly. You have no idea how fast the genetics start to adapt, your brain starts to adapt, because it's put into such an extreme or different, different environment, right? So hopefully this makes sense. I know I rushed through things, but that's why you got the pause button. The other side of this is, look at it a different way. If you watched horror films every single day for 1 month, every day, how are you going to be thinking by the end of that month? Like a weirdo, right? Straight weirdo. If you watched everything about Elon Musk, all his interviews, everything from the start of his career right up to now, if you watched everything every day for a month, how would you be thinking? You'd be thinking way close to Elon Musk. I'm not saying the intelligence or the X, but Elon Musk, right? So you could then go back to this and go, well, how would Elon Musk really solve this issue, right? Well, he'd be creative. But when we start to understand that changes everything. And what a stat it goes along with your network is your net worth. A stat, which again, my opinions on stats, but we earn within 20% of the people that we hang around with the most. So if you're hanging around with people who are baseline income, then guess what? You are going to feel justified at that level. Now, I'm not saying they're better or worse. It's nothing to do with it. We're talking about specific around money, right? This could be health. This could be whatever it is. So when we start to understand, this is the massive effect of who we're around, what we're putting in our head, what we're watching. And then we start like messing ourselves up with social media, right? So it's to get likes, or it's looking at other people and wanting to be like them. But what you're doing is you're getting, like we spoke about modeling, you're just getting a piece. You don't know how they wake up in the morning, how they go to bed at night. You don't know their emotional journey in the middle. You don't know how they're making decisions. You know nothing about them. So this is the danger with social media, is that you're getting a screenshot of an outcome, which doesn't mean anything. So you can't model these people. This is different to reading or listening to an autobiography of somebody. You know their thought sequences. So when we start to look at this, ask the question, who am I around the most? Is it who I want to become like? What am I putting in my brain? Is it what I want to become like? If the answer is no, cool, it's beautiful, good, you can change it, right? So this leads to the next one, and hopefully it all makes sense, everybody. I know I'm jumping again, but there's so much things to go through. Hopefully this is all sequencing and leading together, because this leads us to our 9 business balances, okay? So I'm going to explain those in a second, but just before we jump into that, I want you to be honest with yourself. I want you to ask these questions, and I just want you to write a couple of things down, maybe three different comments. But what were the biggest lessons from last year? Now, I put business there and performance, but this could be just life. What are the top 3 lessons that you learned from last year that you're going to make sure that you don't replicate that mistake, but it means that you've grown and advanced? What are those top 3 things? Just pause for a moment and just look into that for yourself, because this is going to affect what we're about to do next. For me, let's think about for myself to help everybody out, okay? One of my biggest lessons was that I have to trust people. But be very, very, very careful who that is. They have to earn that trust. Second thing is that you best be ahead of your game. If this is your game, business, marketing, sales, you best be good at it, and you best improve on that, and don't allow anybody to be in charge of your income stream. Third one, for me, it's just everything is frequency, everything's vibration, and that's the game, vibration. And so that's my 3 things. I'll just give you another 30 seconds just to write down your 3 things. I just said those to see if it helped. Okay, cool. So leading on to the next thing, I want to introduce you to the 9 business balances, okay? There's different versions of this, but I just called mine the 9 business balances because I don't believe in balance, right? And I'll explain that in a moment. I explain in leverage balance, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. But as we're on the paper and pen thing, let's keep you going on it. So out of 0 to 100%, where have you been spending or not spending your energy? Remember, we only have so much time, effort, and energy, consumer or investor, okay? So I want you to be honest with yourself. How much time out of 0 to 100% have you been spending on your finances? Maybe you've been running away from them and not looking at them. Maybe you've been just, loving it and growing that income. What about your environment? Well, not been spending any time on my environment, Andy. Cool, but 0% then. Well, everything's about the environment. It has to be perfect for me to feel good. Then put what you want. Be honest. Next one, number 3, is your purpose and alignment with yourself. Are you moving the needle towards your mission? This is why I've been getting you to visualize or play with the 12-month version of you. So purpose alignment, are you moving the needle towards that each day? Number 4, skills, knowledge, and discovery and growth. Have you been upskilling? Well, you're hearing the 1% performers, so yeah. So outside of this, have you been doing that for the rest of the year? Number 5, global networks. Have you been expanding the people that you know? And I don't just mean in your town, I mean in the world. Have you been reaching out through social media, through networks, through masterminds, through this to connect with other people in different parts of the world? It's no right or wrong. It's just this is how we enhance. Number 6, personal communities. So your friendships, your inner circles. Have you been building them? Or have you been pushing everybody away? Have you been a bit flaky? You know? These are the people that you've got to keep them close. So make sure that we do, but we'll talk about that more later. Self-discovery. Again, have you been learning yourself? Right? Where you mess up, where you don't, where you're awesome, where you definitely need more work. And what about self-awareness? Okay, self-discovery is breaking into the unknown. Self-awareness is breaking habits that are inside of you. Okay, out of 0 to 100. What about health? Okay, health. Have you been looking after your health? Or have you been eating like a maniac and lying on the couch? 50-50, okay? Okay, chewing the health up. Okay, so now you've got a screenshot or a snapshot of that. Is there anything that stands out? Is there anything that pops out? Is there any ahas? Is there any something that you go, wow, I just didn't even think about that. I haven't spent any time about that. Or you've been spending too much, right? Maybe it's the focus on finances, but you're like, I'm focusing 80% on finances, but my finances aren't going up. Damn. Okay, so start to learn and get a grip. So why talk about leverage balance? Okay, so what the heck does leverage balance mean? So if we looked at those 9 business balances, right? What we're trying to do here is we're trying to look for the 1 or 2, or maybe 3 at a stretch, that would have a ripple effect through the others. Okay, so I know, for example, if I worked on my environment, okay, that means setting the office up the right way, your home the right way, and whatever's going on. So you walk into that place and it feels like money, feels like you just inspired and to go. I know if I focused on, not just using it as an example, we focused on environment and health, okay? Those 2 things would have a ripple effect through my finances. Why? Because my environment is dialed in, so I'm more productive. My health is on point, which means my brain is optimized and my body's optimized, which means then my finances will go up. And guess what? I'll have more time to have self-awareness. Okay? And then we can go through them all. So when we start to understand that, what are the top 1, 2, or 3 that creates that leverage point that you know, or that ripple through the rest of things, right? So for me, it could be another one you could look at was go, I love what I do, but I know it doesn't feel right for my future, right? So I know I need to work on my alignment and my purpose, because if I do, I know that I'm going to expand my global networks. I know I'm going to learn more about my self-discovery and awareness. I know my finances are going to go up. So do you see how we adopt that? So for you right now, I just want you to look at which ones create that leverage point. Again, if you need to come back, you can come back. Cool. But hopefully this is starting to all click together, make sense? So that's what I call leverage balance. And I can go more and more into this, but I just want to give you tasters and we can talk about that after and create topics or whatever. But that's how I want you to focus on things, okay? 9 environments, 9 balances, and we need to make sure that they're all in alignment or we're growing towards what we're moving towards, okay? So, confidence versus arrogance. Might seem a random topic, but it's not. I'm going to explain why it's not in a moment. Because this all might seem awesome on paper, but when you come to actually up level in any of these areas, you're probably going to get resistance. It's to some level, some degree, right? So what we need to understand is where the emotion is coming from that's stopping you. Or you're looking at social media, like I said before, and you're reacting to it, right? So what do I mean by this? So this is where self-sabotage really comes from. It really is. And let me explain. The classic saying, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, right? We've all heard that. It's completely not true. It's completely not true. They are on the other end of the spectrum. They're completely different sides, right? They're nothing to do with each other. Although, from the outside person, that's what they might see, but it's not the truth. Arrogance and confidence, right? So where does arrogance come from? We're going to get it in a moment. But arrogance comes from ego. Arrogance comes from insecurity. So insecurity, ego is not insecurity. Yes, it is. And we're going to get into that in a moment. Where does confidence come from? Confidence comes from purpose, knowing who you are. All the things that we spoke about a few moments ago, right? Self-discovery, self-awareness, all of these things, that's where confidence comes from. You working your ass off to master your craft, right? You put in your, you get the idea. So there's such a fine line. No, there's such a massive gap. Confidence here, arrogance here, 2 totally different ends of the spectrum. Arrogance is insecurity. Arrogance is doubt. Arrogance is ego. The opposite end of the spectrum is confidence. Confidence is drive and passion and excitement. And mastering your craft. So when people say there's a fine line, now you know. There is absolutely not. It's a dramatic difference.
That's all for this episode of the Neuro-Performance Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to stay connected, rate, review, and visit andymurphy.online to take the next step towards unlocking your pure potential. See you next time. That's all for this episode of the Neuro-Performance Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to stay connected, rate, review, and visit andymurphy.online to take the next step towards unlocking your pure potential. See you next time.